Welcome to The Verdict. Glad you're with us. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers here to discuss topical issues and meet some interesting people. And boy, is this topical, and boy, is this guy interesting. Glen Johnson.
Indeed. Higher education is the topic. He's the Chancellor of Higher Education in Oklahoma. We have not had him on before, although we have tried to schedule a couple of times, but we were able to schedule it this time, and thrilled to have him come on. He's going to tell us about what's going on in higher education in Oklahoma. There's a lot going on. Of course, funding is a huge issue always for higher education, but there are a lot of programs going on at Oklahoma State University, University of Oklahoma, and the other public higher education forums that he knows about and has actually been involved with. He's been a president of one of our universities here in Oklahoma. Vast experience. Also very familiar with the legislative process, as he has been Speaker of the House.
Well, more money comes out of that state budget to education than anywhere else. And Glenn can kind of tell us the way it all works, because it's a very complicated, layered formula. And I know I'm going to learn some things today just by being around Glenn and being able to ask him some questions.
He's seen all sides of it.
We'll be right back, where you're watching The Verdict, and today's guest is Glen Johnson, Chancellor of the Oklahoma State System of Higher Education.
In driving rain, blistering heat, and bitter cold, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, Chesapeake drills non-stop for natural gas on American soil. Chesapeake drills more new gas wells than anyone else, and from those wells collects the most drilling information and acquires more 3D seismic images, leveraging every efficiency to improve the odds of finding more natural gas every day with every well we drill. The better job we do of discovering bigger reserves of clean-burning American natural gas, the greater the prosperity of our nearby communities, our state, and our nation. And as long as there are more gas reserves to be found here in the U.S., we will never rest. Chesapeake. Natural gas wins the day.
Just keep it.
Thank you.
Dr. Kessler? What's up with the pizzas?
Well, I just got my first satellite bill, and those extra fees were a bit of a shocker. So I had to take a second job.
Hey, this was supposed to be pepperoni, dillweed.
Hey, it's Dr. Dillweed to you.
Whatever.
Kids. It's cool. I'm a people person.
Don't live in satellite denial. Get all your entertainment without the hidden charges from Cox, your friend in the digital age.
Our pledge as a company is to provide quality of service for our paying customers.
When you illegally hook up cable,
everyone pays.
Theft of cable can cause outages.
Sometimes poor reception.
We seek out illegal use.
And we prosecute offenders.
You know someone not paying for service.
Call us at 1-800-466-5590.
You could remain anonymous.
Cable theft. It's more serious than you think. It's a crime.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Today we're very pleased to have the Chancellor of Higher Education, Glen Johnson, joining us. Glen did his undergraduate work at the University of Oklahoma, where he's a member of Phi Beta Kappa. He did his law work also at the University of Oklahoma. Spent 14 years in the Oklahoma House of Representatives, ascending to the position of Speaker of the House from 1990 to 1996. He was president of Southeastern Oklahoma State University in Durant for 10 years. After that, he has, since 2007, I guess it is, you've been named the Chancellor for higher education system in Oklahoma. This is his first visit to the verdict. Chancellor, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Kent. Glad to be here, Mayor.
Let's start with some basic premises. People understand that there's a president of university.
Right.
They understand or hear about a board of regents. But what is the chancellor for the Oklahoma State system of higher education, and how does that interact with those other levels?
Okay, the chancellor and the state regents are the coordinating board for the state system. We coordinate academic programs, we grant degrees, but probably most would acknowledge that one of the more important things we do is allocate the budget to the 25 colleges and universities. The legislature under our Constitution appropriates to the state regents and to the chancellor in a lump sum, and then under a formula that we have, we make the decisions on the allocations to our two research institutions, University of Oklahoma, Oklahoma State University, all of our regional universities, and our 12 community colleges. So
people understand OU, OSU, the regional institutions. Do you have anything to do with the private schools like Tulsa or Oklahoma City University?
We are not, as far as supervisory or coordinating, we're not involved directly with them, but we're involved with them, Mayor, in a number of different things. A lot of our research projects like the EPSCoR project. Right now, for instance, we're starting a student information portal to give students access to information about college degrees, ACT information, financial aid, and we're involving the private institutions in that endeavor. So we do not directly coordinate them, but we're involved with them in a number of issues that directly impact higher education in Oklahoma.
What kind of staff do you have at your office?
Well, we have a staff at the state regent's office of approximately 130 employees. I have several vice chancellors in critical areas: academic affairs, student affairs, budget and finance, technology, governmental relations. And then we also oversee and have supervisory responsibility for the Guaranteed Student Loan Program, which encompasses about another 150 employees. And of course, we administer all of the student loans in the state of Oklahoma, and it's a very important responsibility. So as chancellor, I have responsibility both for the state regent's office and also for the student loan office as well.
How do you interact with the regents?
Well, of course, we meet monthly, but I have frequent interaction with our regents. In addition to that, I have teleconferences with them on a variety of issues. We're structured under a committee structure, and so although we meet once a month, it's not unusual for me to be talking with each of them on the issues that we deal with a couple times a week. They're very hands-on. It's a 9-year appointment appointed by the governor, which is the longest term of any gubernatorial appointment. So it's a very important constitutional responsibility, and I think they all take it that way. We have a lot of interaction, Mayor.
What about your position? It's appointed, I take it.
It is. It's appointed by the state regents, and so I report to them and am the chief executive officer of the system, reporting directly to them. And of course, the state regents were created in 1941 by virtue of a statewide vote of the people. That was done to give our higher education system some autonomy or independence, and then the chancellor serves as the chief executive officer of that system.
I assume there's some sort of interview process involved with that appointment. What are they looking for? What sorts of questions would someone ask someone who they were considering hiring as chancellor?
Well, I think, Mayor, at least in the interview process that I just went through about 4 months ago, my impression was they were looking for someone that had the ability to be the spokesperson for the system in terms of the one person that articulates the vision and the mission for our state system of higher education. They were looking for someone who could interact not just with the legislature and the governor, but frankly the business community, the media, and all of the stakeholders in higher education. I think it was important to have someone that had a background in terms of higher education administration, knowledge of the academic enterprise, the workings of the budget and the financial atmosphere that you have in higher education. But I think some of the intangibles, it's important to have someone in this position that understands the priorities that students have in our system of higher education and that will frankly put students first. So I think they were looking for a combination, at least the information that came my way. I think they thought I had a rather unique blend with 14 years in the legislature, also 10 years as a university president, a year at University of Oklahoma where I was director of public policy and also on the faculty at the law school. The Regents felt that was frankly a very a good blend and a unique blend in terms of the skills needed to be in the position as the Chief Executive Officer of our system of higher education. It's a $1.9 billion budget. It is involved with 25 colleges and universities, and so it's a very comprehensive job.
Well, I was just going to ask you about that. We have the two research institutions that you just mentioned, OU and OSU, and they have multiple campuses, I guess. OSU has a campus, of course, at Stillwater and in Tulsa and probably other places. Oklahoma City, I guess. OU has some similar things.
Right.
What about the regional universities or colleges? Tell us about those a little bit.
Well, we have 10 regional universities or colleges in the state. The bulk of those are under the regional university system of Oklahoma, but we also have 4 others as well. They are charged with, most have both undergraduate and selected master's degrees programs, but as an example, Northeastern State University has the optometry program. Southwestern at Weatherford has the pharmacy program. So in individual areas, they do have doctoral degree programs as well. They, of course, traditionally, the regional institutions have been involved and were originally created 100 years ago now as normal schools, charged with the responsibility of preparing teachers to teach in Oklahoma's classrooms. But as the regionals have evolved, they have evolved from institutions with that very specific mission to where now all of them have multiple master's degree categories. And frankly, again, in terms of access to students, if you look at what one of my overarching goals as chancellor is to have more graduates in this state, graduates who can add value to our economy in Oklahoma, graduates who can compete in what we all know is a very changing global environment. And the regional system provides access, as does our 2-year community college system, to those students throughout our state, and provides a very important component. I like to call it the 3 A's. We need to be providing access to students. Our higher education opportunity needs to be affordable. And I think it's also important that we're accountable to our stakeholders, not just the legislature, but the business community as well, in terms of making sure that our accreditations and minimum standards are met. And frankly, I think it's important that we tell the story of how we spend those dollars once the legislature allocates them to the state regions. Of course, I think it's a great story. Last year we were able to add 900 course sections throughout our system with the dollars we received, which let students graduate more closer to their timetable. We were able to add faculty, and it's critically important as our enrollments increase in our system to have more faculty members to keep class sizes small and to address what has been a very significant enrollment increase in our system.
Glen Johnson is the Chancellor for the Oklahoma State System of Higher Education. We'll be back with more on the verdict right after this.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of the verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Shining is taking responsibility. At Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma, we know managing your health care can be overwhelming, and it's our job to help you meet the challenge. By guiding, supporting, and showing the way, we encourage you to gain control. Because we believe the best tool we can give you is the confidence to take charge. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Oklahoma, shining through.
That land next door was a mess. Take more than a lawnmower to revive that land. I heard the oil and natural gas people was cleaning up old oil sites, and it wouldn't cost us a plug nickel. Oh yes, sir, it was quite a revival. The whole church showed up, want to make a playground for the kids. It sure is a blessing.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
There's a whole new world online, but it's not always safe for kids. Never give your name, phone, address, or password to anyone you met online, and always keep your personal information private. It's the safe way for kids, right, gang?
Right. Be safe online.
Thanks to Lauren Nelson and Cox, we're working to keep Oklahoma kids safer online. For your free guide, log on now. And if you feel your child has been placed in danger by someone online, notify law enforcement today.
Oh, hi. I know you guys said I'd save with Cox Digital Telephone. Well, my bill came and... Could this be right?
You may be surprised how much you save with Cox Digital Telephone. That's why over 1.5 million people have switched.
So this really is a total? Lovely. Because I think I found a good use for the savings.
With Cox, there's no waiting for the other shoe to drop. The only surprise is there's no surprise at all.
We're back on The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and we're visiting with Glen Johnson. He's the Chancellor for Higher Education in the state of Oklahoma. How's enrollment going? What are the numbers looking like?
Well, they're looking very good. We've had Mayor, over the last 5 years, we've had a pretty significant increase, about a 21% increase. Right now, we have approximately 237,000 students in our system, and we've been on a good trajectory upward. And of course, with the additional enrollment, that's important because that drives the goal that I think we have to produce more graduates for our state. But obviously, enrollment increases are only one component. We want to keep them at the institution or retain them, and then ultimately improve our graduation rates, where they'll graduate and then stay in Oklahoma and contribute to our economy and add to the quality of life in our state. So it's a sequential process, but the enrollment increases are something we've been very pleased with, and certainly are prepared to deal with them within our system.
I'm always reading at requests for budget increases for higher.
Right.
Is that tied to the increase in enrollment?
Absolutely, it is. In fact, under our funding formula, one of the key components of that formula are institutions that have growth in enrollment. So it's very important, and certainly as we make the request of the legislature, as we did last year, we had a very good year. One of the items that they were very interested in is the fact that enrollments in our colleges and universities had increased not only from the previous year, but over the last several years. And that is something that the legislature looks at very closely as well.
On enrollments, can you, I'm just kind of curious, are the major research institutions increasing at a higher percentage rate than the regional or local colleges or universities?
They are to some degree, Kent, but I think we've had increases at all three of our tiers, at the 2-year, at the regional, and the research, although it's the increases at the research level have been slightly higher.
Of course, a real factor in a student trying to decide whether or not to go to higher education and where would be tuition costs. Are the tuition costs attractive enough to keep our brightest and best in Oklahoma?
Well, we believe they are. We've had a couple studies last year that ranked Oklahoma second in the nation in terms of overall affordability for tuition and fees. We're well below our peer levels at the research institution level. In fact, OU and OSU are 11th and 12th in the Big 12, those that they compare with. At our regional level, we're below the peer average in the same way at the 2-year community college level. The legislature mandates an amount that we cannot exceed, the institutions cannot exceed, and we're below that level at every tier. So that's something that we're very cognizant of. And of course, the other side of that equation are the scholarship opportunities, and we've really placed a great deal of emphasis on scholarships. The OLAP scholarship program, which is a great program. If a student's parents have income level of $50,000 or below, if they'll make a 2.5 grade point average, take the core curriculum, which prepares them for college, and stay out of trouble, the state of Oklahoma will pay for their college tuition. It's a very significant program, and one that's been, as you can imagine, very popular. And of course, the OTAG program, the Tuition Aid Grant Program, our Academic Scholars Programs, we've really tried to place an emphasis to give students who have the ability to achieve, and not just the students who have the ability to pay, the opportunity to go to college.
Are we able to retain faculty? How does the budget interact with that ability to retain faculty?
Well, the budget is directly related to it because it's a competitive process, as you can imagine. And our goal is to keep the best faculty that we have here and also to recruit and attract a new faculty. And that's why last year was so important, Mayor. We had the opportunity, we made a strong pitch to the legislature and the governor. They responded by giving higher education an additional $130 million in new money. And so there were two things that impact faculty. We were able to add faculty in critical areas, where we have linked our academic programs more closely to the needs of the business community. But also we were able to provide for a compensation increase for our faculty. And that's very important. It is competitive. Those that are in demand are looking other places, and as we can not only keep up with that request for compensation, but also provide incentives to faculty for grantsmanship and research opportunities, they're going to want to stay in Oklahoma. And last year was a great year. The legislature and the governor made a significant investment in higher education, and that's why I think it's important that we tell this story, that it was a wise investment. And obviously another thing they did was close the gap in per student funding. There was a gap of about $1,212 per student between the national average and Oklahoma. By virtue of what they did last year, they cut that gap in half, from $1,212 per student down to $587 per student. So we made some big strides in closing that gap. Obviously, if we're more closer to a level playing field, our students are going to have better opportunities, and that's what our faculty want as well.
Now, the universities and colleges are working on their own, are they not, to try to raise additional funds for endowed professorships and the like? You see that all the time, particularly in regard to Oklahoma State University and the University of Oklahoma. You see announcements about that. But I guess the universities aren't just sitting back and saying, we're going to wait to see what you give us. They're out trying to raise money themselves.
Absolutely, and of course we encourage that. We want to foster that all that we can. The Endowed Chair Program is a great program. In fact, I was privileged to be one of the authors of that program when I was in the legislature back in 1988. And if you think about it, what it says, if an individual or a company will put a minimum of $250,000, the state of Oklahoma will match that dollar for dollar. And what happens, either through professorships coming to campus or lectureships, we expose our students to the best and the brightest faculty all across the nation, in fact, even internationally in some instances. And that's what it's really all about, is to enhance that learning opportunity for our students. It's been so popular that this year we've made an additional request to address the backlog in the endowed chairs. We've got 233 chairs right now that are where the private company or individuals have put their money up, but the state has not been in a position to match it. And we'd like to match that this year so we can bring additional faculty to the state of Oklahoma to provide better opportunities for our students.
What do you assess, we're getting down kind of near the end of this segment, what do you assess as the major needs of higher education, both now and in the future?
Well, of course, we always have budgetary needs, and that's something that's one of our responsibilities and mine to make. I think we have an obligation not just to meet the minimum academic standards, but what we've tried to do is provide some additional incentives to our institutions who will increase their performance. We're providing incentives if they'll increase their retention rates, keeping students in college, if they'll increase their graduation rates, the percentage where our students graduate. So we're trying to do that as well, and trying to show that minimum standards are important, but there's going to be incentives for additional performance as well. As far as the needs, I think we have an obligation to the state. It's very important that we demonstrate that as we have more graduates and are producing more graduates, that we provide them the skills to problem solve, to critically think, to analyze, to give them excellent written and verbal and technological skills where they're going to be able to compete. Our environment's changing globally, and we know that. We've got to give them the opportunities to be able to compete wherever they go, and obviously in the process they will add value to our economy in this state as well.
We have run out of time. We're going to have you back on another show because
I'd love
we've still got
to.
a lot of things
please come back.
We didn't get a chance to address today, but we can certainly do that in the future.
I'll be glad to come back anytime.
All
It's
right.
been a pleasure.
Glen Johnson, thank you very much for coming on The Verdict. Kent and I'll have a final word when we return.
good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
You need this one to get satellite HD. This one's your DVR. This one's for local channels. This one's...
What are we supposed to do with all this stuff?
Got you covered. Oh, by the way, that old satellite stuff makes a great end cable.
That doesn't look so bad, right, honey?
Don't live in satellite denial. Get the latest entertainment without the hassles from Cox, your friend in the digital age.
Not sure where you're headed? NATS can help you find your way. It's the National Athletic Testing System. We call it NATS. You'll call it your launching pad to success. NATS will give you a standardized evaluation that will help you measure your performance and give that information to college coaches so they can accurately evaluate your potential. NATS also helps with academic support. Join with the Oklahoma High School Football Coaches Association and head for success at www.nats.us.
We're back on The Verdict. Glen Johnson's an interesting guy.
Generally deemed the most highly qualified chancellor we have ever had in the state of Oklahoma. Not demeaning the others we've had, they've been great, but he seems to be at the top of the list.
For more information, you can go to their website, okhighered.org, or you can go to our website, theverdict.tv, and tell us about a show you'd like to see. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We'll see you on The Verdict.
The preceding program was produced by the Production Services Group at Cox Communications, exclusively for the Cox Channel.